In Syria, ISIS and Kurdish forces continue battling for the town of Kobani, a battle that is still at a standoff after weeks of U.S. airstrikes. NBC's chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is one of the very few reporters who managed to make it into that embattled city and meet the Kurdish men and the women who are fighting for their homes. Here's part of his special report, which will air tonight on MSNBC.
We run up an exposed staircase to an apartment on the top floor of a residential building, where the bedrooms have been turned into snipers' nests. 26-year-old Vian was once a school teacher. Now she spends her days in this room watching and trying to find the enemy just across the street. Born and raised in Kobani, Vian says leaving was never an option. Kobani is our home, she says. Where else would we go? We will stay here and fight. It's especially important, she says, for women to be strong in the Middle East, where they are rarely seen or heard from. We stand here as symbols of strength, she adds, for all the women of the region.
Richard Engel joins me now from Turkey, not far from the border with Syria. Richard, you spent time there. You were with the men and the women. We were all, stunned by watching the women taking these leadership roles. What impressions do you have about Kobani and on the larger issue of what the Kurdish forces can achieve there?
Of all of the different fighting groups that we've spent time with in Syria over the last several years, I found the Kurdish fighters in Kobani to be among the most organized, certainly the most secular. They live in something of a progressive, idealistic society with no distinction of gender roles. Men and women do the cooking, do the work together. Women are commanders, men are commanders. They don't question each other's authority. They have no formal rank. Very different than when we spent time with a group like the Free Syrian Army, which it was a nationalist group but had a very Islamic undertone in many cases. In this case, the Kurdish fighters were organized, they were principled, they have their issues with ISIS, also their issues here with Turkey, but in Kobani we found them to be an incredibly cohesive group of fighters.
And looking at the other side of the border, at the Iraqi forces, we heard testimony from the Joint Chiefs Chairman Martin Dempsey yesterday that he would be considering having U.S. troops accompanying them in other parts, or outside Mosul, for instance. It seems to be sort of a slippery slope towards a combat mission, advisors, combat troops. What are you projecting there?
Well, if you look at the difference here, in Kobani you have a group of fighters with really no support from the outside. They take no salaries. They are fighting for their principles, for their homes. Then you have the Iraqi army, which the United States spent about a decade, about $25 billion to train, equipped with American-made weapons, and it isn't holding up nearly as well. It continues to collapse. It has continued to be infiltrated by Iranian militias, by Shiite religious militias, and the fact that General Dempsey is suggesting, or at least hinting, that he's not ruling out the possibility that American troops may have to go on the ground to fight with Iraqi troops if they were ever to try and do an ambitious offensive like take back the city of Mosul from ISIS. I think that says a great deal about not only the Iraq training mission, but also the current status of the Iraqi army. And as you said, a slippery slope. This war on ISIS started out with just a few advisors and reinforcements for the American embassy in Baghdad. That's what it was supposed to be initially.
Exactly.
Just some people to help the embassy in Baghdad. And then it was military advisors, and then more military advisors, and then more money, and we will see where this goes.
Richard Engel, who's been there throughout, thank you very much, and we're really looking forward to Richard's special report tonight at 9 Eastern for the battle against ISIS right here on MSNBC.